good to be together on a Friday. And I think, I'm trying to think of how many times we've read the 23rd Psalm together. I know we do it every single Thursday night. My guess is we've done it every Thursday night for the past 10 or 15 years. And yet every time I say those words, whether it's just by myself in the sanctuary or together with people in church, the words just speak to the comfort and the peace that God can give us. So I just have one of the verses. Yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I fear no evil. And then it says, for thou art with me. I guess the last couple of days I've felt like I've been walking in the valley of the shadow of death. And not in a bad way. The other day I had my 3 of my grandkids with me, and I picked them up after school to spend some time with them, and I said, on the way to the church, we're going to take a little detour, and we stopped by the Ukrainian church just down the block from us. And we went in the sanctuary. It's open all the time. And there's all kinds of goods that people have dropped off. Candles are lit. There's crosses. There's all kinds of artwork on the wall. And we started talking, and even though they're young, they were asking questions about Ukraine. And we talked about the violence, and I said, you kids get to just kind of go wherever you want to, get to go to the church, get to go back home, and those kids, some of them don't even know where their parents are. And when I look at the images of what's happening in Ukraine, I just can't get those images out of my mind. The long lines and people hunkered down underground trying to stay safe. And they are walking through the valley of the shadow of death. And they see the face of evil, what it can do. And yet, I can just tell that they're not afraid in many ways because they know that the good Lord walks with them. Their guts and their courage and that inner strength. And don't you just want to go over there and embrace them and invite them to your house and give them a warm meal? But they walk through the valley of the shadow of death. I fear no evil, for thou art with me. And it reminds me, the Psalms, like Psalm 23, most of them were written when the Israelite people were captives. They were away from their temple, away from their homes. And they felt like, even though they were away from the strength, they're away from their center of worship, they knew that the good Lord walked with them. And I hope that's true with our Ukrainian brothers and sisters, that they know that the good Lord is there with them. I spent some time yesterday with a family, Tom and Nancy, and they have a son named Josh in his 40s, and he's been living with a degenerative disease all his life. And he's nearing the finish line. And as we stood in the room and talked and had a little prayer, in a way we were walking through the valley of the shadow of death. And all of you have been there. You're with somebody you love and you're waiting for the finish line to come. And yet, even though we're afraid because we don't want to be without the person we love, we know that we don't have to ultimately be afraid because God is going to welcome him into a kingdom that will never end. And that gives us strength, and that gives us hope. And that's why the 23rd Psalm, I think, is at the very heart and soul of who we are. That yea, though we walk through the valley of the shadow of death, and all of us do that, we don't have to fear evil, even though it can be there, because thou art with me. Thy rod and thy staff, they comfort me. And that's the promise that binds us together. And you've taught me that over the years, and especially over the past couple of years with so much uncertainty, and then of course what's going on with Russia and Ukraine. There's so much going on, and yet we rest in the promise that God gives us. I close with just a little incident that, I don't know, I actually kind of laugh at it. I was visiting a family in the hospital, and they're not members of the church, but they're good friends. And as I was sitting there visiting with them, somebody from another church comes in, a deacon, I think, and asks if if they want to have communion. And she kind of asked who I am, and I said, I'm a Lutheran minister. And she said, are you ordained? And what is it? Anyway, she took out the wafers, and she gave it to the family, and she looked at me, didn't give me one, and walked out the door. And I thought to myself, well, isn't that a fine how do you do? And I was just thinking, Jesus wouldn't do that. When he shared that Passover supper the night before he died, and he said, from now on, when you eat of this bread and drink of this wine, no restrictions. He was talking to the human family. And that's why I'm so grateful that when we get together and share the Lord's Supper, that you know that no matter who you are, where you've been, what you've been through, that this altar is your oasis. This altar is a symbol of the goodness of God's grace. You know, all those things that we do over and over again, the Lord's Prayer, the Apostles' Creed, Psalm 23, having communion, a lot of repetition. But each time we do it, it kind of gets deeper and deeper and deeper into our guts. That's the way it's been, and I look forward to talking to you on Sunday, and I just want to thank you so much for the Spirit that binds us together. God bless, and thanks for listening once again to my ramblings.